Morning, everyone. I'm here with my great Minister of Labour, David Piccini. I guess I'll start off with talking about last week. I thought it was a very successful COF meeting. We had an opportunity to sit around the table with the premiers and the Prime Minister. For the first time, the Prime Minister showed up to a COF on our invitation, which was very, very good due to the circumstances we're facing against Donald Trump and his tariffs. We came up with consensus around the table in how we tackle this situation with President Trump. And, just my opinion, you heard about the deals with Japan and the European Union and then ourselves. We're working on August 1st. We'll see what comes from that. But I've always taken the approach dollar for dollar, tariff for tariff. And if he wants to attack our hardworking steel workers, aluminum workers, then we have to meet that 50% tariff. As well, what we did communicate around the table, and all the premiers agreed that we need more say into our immigration process, very, very similar to Quebec. We want to really focus on economic immigration, along with my comments about work permitting. I don't want to take the responsibility off the federal government, but in saying that, if you have a pulse and you're healthy, you need to be working. You come to our country. First, they have to go through the system. So I'll give you an example how the system's getting worse through the federal government, not better. They say they issued 70,000 work permits. Well, we have 90,000 people coming in. And altogether, there's about 139,000. David, you have the numbers down better. I think across the country, you're mentioning over 280,000 backlogged. I'm very concerned, which the Prime Minister never mentioned to me, about cutting off the funding in literally a month in September for everyone in the hotels. I have quite a few asylum seekers in the hotel in our area and across, especially in Niagara and other areas. The federal government has to go in there and find out who's eligible. The whole system has to have integrity. Who's eligible, who's not. We're a very welcoming country, very welcoming province, and I've always said, people come here, they come here, and it's a privilege to be a Canadian. You go out there, you work hard, and you contribute to society and you pay your taxes. What's very concerning to me is that we're spending $1 billion, and I've had a few phone calls about, I'm not handing out work permits to every Tom, Dick, and Harry. It's just not happening. What we are doing is when we're spending $1 billion and it's taking 2 years, and people are sitting there, not because they don't want to work, because they don't have a work permit. So that's $1 billion there. And then the feds are adding another $1 billion on accommodations. And if they get rid of that, that's another $500 million, a burden that falls on the taxpayers of Ontario. And I just go back to, again, if you're here, if you're healthy, you need to be working. You need to be contributing to society. You need to be contributing to the tax base. And what else is happening? A lot of these folks that are here, they want to work. We're paying them to sit around, which is crazy. But then they're out there standing on certain corners within the city, and contractors will come by, pick them up, and they're paying them cash under the table. So we're losing a tax base on that. And these people have come here for a better life. And if they truly aren't asylum seekers, and they aren't being threatened in their own country, that's up to the federal government to make sure they're very clear. The people that aren't here based on that, they need to move forward and go back and then reapply through the immigration process. So I'll pass it over to you, David, and maybe you could speak a little further on the issue that we're facing.
Thank you, Premier. To reiterate what the Premier said, I mean, with the tariff threat and with the economic uncertainty that we see, we've got to protect Ontario, we've got to protect our workers. That means having systems with integrity. I'm the grandson of an immigrant who came here from Italy, and this country has always welcome immigrants. We need a system that stands with integrity and a system that is able to process and properly adjudicate. And we know that Ontario right now, the federal government are processing fewer asylum claimants than claims that are being made in the province of Ontario today. And you can't have a system that takes incredibly long to adjudicate and an uncertain system, and then also cut labor market transfer agreement funding, which is our very tool designed to equip people to succeed in the economy and to contribute to the economy. Cutting settlement services funding. These are all the tools that are left to the provinces to address this issue. Now, the federal government have strengthened certain loopholes whereby a student enters here under a student visa, and then at the expiration of that visa, in an attempt to stay, will file for asylum. We saw a massive increase on that, and they rectified that loophole in a bill currently going before Parliament. But bottom line, as the Premier said, is we want Ontario to succeed. We want this economy to succeed. To do it, you've got to ensure that people are working and people are contributing to the economy. And so to that end, we've got to have the support from the federal government. We need to have increased support, and we need increased autonomy so that we as a province are able to bring in and to support the kind of economic immigrants that are going to support certain sectors of our labor market and ensure people have a pathway to contribute. And that's what we're calling on them today, is to support Ontario, help address the $1 billion we spend right now on asylum seekers, help ensure that that system has integrity. To give you all an example right now, we don't know what happens when an asylum claimant is rejected. We don't know if they're given a removal order. What we do know is that 90% are unescorted, which means we don't know if that individual actually stays or leaves. And what we do know is that our system, in particularly in our urban centers, something Mayor Chow, Mayor Brown, and many others would reiterate, is that that system is under strain from a housing perspective, from an education perspective, and from a healthcare capacity perspective. So we need the support from the federal government, and the Premier is right in joining arms with other premiers to say we want more say in Ontario. We're pleased that they have committed to that, and we certainly want them to support us financially.
Permits for people who are claiming refugee status. What I'm hearing today is, no, we're not doing that. That's too complicated, and you misspoke last week. Can you explain why the reversal?
Yeah, so what I'm saying, we aren't taking it over, but the people that are there, that are sitting there collecting, we're collecting welfare, they're collecting free schooling, free health care and everything, I want them working. And if we can support the federal government, maybe they don't have the capacity to handle it, we're willing to do that. I just want people to be out there working. Do I want the whole immigration system on the shoulders of the province? No. Would I like to be treated the same way as Quebec? Yes. And so would every other province and territory. But we have to start getting people to work. These are healthy people that want to work, and they're sitting in a hotel room for 2 years, and they're unable to work.
The federal government does not agree with this 2-year figure. Lots of advocates and lawyers for refugees and so on say the actual figure is 45 days, 6 weeks. We've heard a few months. What do we get? Why do we got these two different pieces?
Well, I'll hand that to you, David. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Premier. I think from stem to stern, we have a process that is getting longer. Demonstrably, we have 280,000 asylum cases that have not been processed today across Canada. Almost 140 of which are here in Ontario. And that inability to process has resulted in incredible uncertainty. I pointed to you already the lack of data that we're getting, the data sharing piece, which all the provinces have reiterated on. And I think that when you are here, what the Premier's saying is you've got to have a path to work. And to work. So we know there have been delays in the issuance of work permit, but the bigger issue is the processing times are ridiculous across Canada.
You're saying the time that it takes
The process is what I'm saying.
So there's a big difference
the Premier's right about the issuance of work permits and the challenge we find with people who are here having their claim adjudicated. You have two approaches to that. While your claim's being adjudicated, you either sit on a system of social benefits, or you have the ability to work. And what we've seen when we visited job sites and when we've seen our settlement agencies is that if you can get people credentialed who might have a doctor's background, we want them contributing to our healthcare system. And there are two problems in that work permits, there are delays on that, but the broader processing times is a significant concern. No. What the Premier said, the Premier has said that we need more autonomy, and that's something all premiers have echoed, and we all agree on that. We want more autonomy. Quebec gets complete autonomy. Ontario now, today, addresses 52% of our international commitments around asylum are processed, and those individuals are in Ontario today. 52%. This isn't an issue equitably felt from Newfoundland to BC. This is an issue unique to Ontario and Quebec, and we would like the financial support.
So what changed between last Wednesday and today? When last Wednesday you were fairly unequivocal, you said it multiple times that Ontario will start issuing work permits to asylum seekers. So today you're saying that's no longer going to happen. What changed?
Well, we want to work with the federal government. We don't want to take over the immigration system per se and take the burden on, which we're doing already, that we're spending over $1 billion. They want to throw another $500 million on our shoulders. But I do want to see these work permits. We aren't getting the data. All I know is on Airport Road in my area, there's people who have been sitting there for 2 years. So they need to explain. They also need to explain that they're saying they're processing 73,000. There's 90,000 people that are here. And then as David was saying, over 280,000 are backlogged. We're there to support them. We're there to help them. But these people have to get off the system because it's costing the taxpayers too much money. We need them getting out there, and we need them working. Now, if they don't get through their screening process, they need to go back and go through the process of immigration. But we can't sustain this hit. People are coming here at this pace, and are they real asylum seekers or not? These are the answers we need from the federal government. Well, I just go out there and I'm hearing it on the street, go up Airport Road, pull over at the Tim Hortons by the Congress Center, start talking to people, ask them how long they've been there, ask them if they want to work. They all want to work, but instead we're paying them to sit in a hotel room. And that's not fair to them. It's not fair to the taxpayers of Ontario. I just want people working if they're here, and if they didn't go through the screening process or didn't pass the process, they need to go. They need to go back home and come back through the immigration process.
Can you explain how this got into the final communique of all the premiers last week? You said you all wanted to.
Yeah,
You said there was overlap between federal and provincial responsibilities under Section 95 of the Constitution, and now you're walking the whole thing back, and it's just a way for more support.
No, you know something, Rob? We're frustrated. The premiers are frustrated. We put it in the communique. And all we're saying is, don't keep putting the burden onto the province. Let's start moving forward. If you need support, we will support you. We will help you. We will do whatever it takes. That's what we have to be very, very clear. Well, first of all, clean up the 280,000 backlog. I don't even know how they have the personnel to do it. That's a big, huge number. And if they're saying they're getting permits in 45 days, show me your data. You can't not tell us the data, but put the burden on the backs of the provinces. That's all we're asking. And if you need support with personnel issuing work permits, we will help you. But that's what we need. Our end goal is to make sure the data is very clear and clean, that their numbers will add up to the numbers that we have, and we get people working and off the public system if they're healthy. Yes.
Last question.
On the trade talks, the Prime Minister now says that there seems to be some kind of landing zone with the Trump administration. What updates have you been given, and are you confident about that August 1st?
Well, I'm never confident with President Trump. I'm confident with Prime Minister Carney. I know he's going to do his very best to to get a deal, but I don't trust President Trump. He'll say one thing one day and say something else and then in the news the next day. We want a fair and free trade. But if he wants to attack our steel industry, our aluminum industry, other industries, we need to hit him back. We are an economic powerhouse in Ontario, economic powerhouse in Canada. As I've said, we buy more products, Canada, than Japan, China, Korea, UK, and France combined. He needs to focus on his number one customer. And a tariff on Canadians is a tax on Americans. Prices will go up. And we need to find out exactly where he stands. And then after we get this deal, so-called deal, August 1st, and then we face it again February 2026 on the USMCA deal.
You've seen the deals with Japan, with the Philippines, with the EU. I mean, there has been a set level of tariffs applied no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Canada can escape this without having baseline tariffs?
Well, I really hope so, for the sake of Canadians and Americans, so we're so integrated. You know, as I used Japan as an example, they buy $79 billion of products. We buy $359 billion of products. You can't treat your number one customer the same as your whatever fifth largest customer, for example. So we're different, we're unique, and we're so intertied our economy.
Everyone, that's it. Thank you. Thanks you.
One of the where and when you're going to have to ask the Prime Minister that, but he has to get the fiscal house in order at the federal government, and it's not his fault. The previous administration, and you know they grew by over 40%. We grew last year about 1.6%. So, anyways, that's up to the Prime Minister. He's a very astute business person. He'll get that done, and we're going to continue working well with the federal government and all the premiers.
I think the question is about the cuts to funding for refugee.
Yeah, David. Yeah, go ahead, David. No, you just.
Yeah, so we have seen a reduction in labor market transfer agreement. We've seen a reduction in settlement services. And I think one thing we can all agree on, lack of certainty and integrity in the system leads to exploitation. Many of you have asked me about that, about the workers the Premier references who are on the corner of the street getting paid in cash. This Premier wants a strong economy where you contribute to our GDP and where you pay taxes and you work. And our tools to help people to work, the Labour Market Transfer Agreement, settlement services, language, have seen a reduction. And you want to support people in language training to speak the language of this country. You want to ensure we don't even get the data on what's the reason they were accepted as an asylum claimant. What is their language proficiency? What are their skill sets? We don't get the basic data. And this Premier and all the Premiers have said we got to work together. And I think that's a positive here. We will work closer together to get this issue addressed.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you.